Hi, I am Neha of Love Neha. I like to say that astrology is your story, human design is your strategy, energy is the work, and hi, I am the Purpose Oracle, Neha. And today I want to answer a question that I got on Threads a couple months ago from a fellow astrologer about the importance of transference and countertransference in astrology consultations. And this is a concept from psychology that I am bringing into the very real people skills that being an astrologer requires. And this goes deeper than just being good with people, but understanding like the energetic, the psychological mechanics that are happening behind the scenes on the unseen levels that can really change how we show up. So why is this important? So first off, and I'm going to link this from the APA in the show notes, but there is data to show that better relationships with patients in a therapist-client relationship lead to better outcomes. So what is my takeaway from that? It's less about the modality or the technique or the psychological, philosophical approach that a therapist takes, but rather the trust and the rapport and the relationship that is built between client and therapist. Now, an astrologer is obviously a very different role than a therapist. It is not mental health support, though I feel like similar to exercise, the way exercise is not a replacement for therapy, it does support your mental health, but that's like a whole different tangent. I think astrology can be supportive, but it's definitely not a mental health care session. Astrology is a consultation, a reading for you to understand yourself and your life and, get really big questions answered. And so what does transference and countertransference look like within an astrological practice? And this is helpful to know whether you're an astrologer offering consults or whether you love getting astrology readings and you want to improve your client experience from both ends. So before we get too deep, what is transference and what is countertransference? So transference happens within the client-astrologer dynamic where a client projects past emotions, experiences, or expectations onto the astrologer. So for example, perhaps a client sees an astrologer as an authority figure and their past experiences, whether in the workplace or in childhood, with authority figures are going to maybe coming up and projected onto you. Say they see astrologer as a healer in some way, and their past experiences with other healers or other astrologers, good or bad, may shape the way that they perceive you. And this is very normal, very human. This is unconsciously bringing in unresolved emotions, expectations, and learned relational dynamics into consultations, often without realizing it. And very similarly, countertransference is exactly what it sounds like. This is when you, as the astrologer, project your emotions or experiences or biases onto the client. And oftentimes, countertransference is seen as like a response to transference, though sometimes I think they can happen independently. That is not an evidence-backed claim, but just from my research and anecdotal experience. So what does countertransference look like in real life? So maybe a client reminds you of someone in your life that you do not like, and that association will subtly impact how you interact with them, even if you don't intend it to change. And when countertransference goes unchecked, a service provider may not be able to provide the best level of care to the client. It's like there's something getting in the way. It can impact client interactions in subtle and systemic ways. It can reinforce systemic factors that they experience in their day-to-day life and also reinforce more subtle relational dynamics that come up from your own stuff or your client's stuff. And yeah, this is like in 2025, in the context of current events, this is also really helpful for combating your own personal biases and social conditioning as well. And to me, this really matters in astrology readings because Yes, clients come to you as an astrologer for your technical insight, the mathematics, the technique, the delineations behind how you get to your conclusions astrologically. But astrology sessions are also deeply personal. Most people book a session when they are at a crossroads seeking guidance, they are at a low point looking for clarity, or they're at a high point wondering how to sustain their success. And so there are unconscious expectations at play. And many clients don't always have the language for what they're feeling. They just know that they're seeking something in the reading. And I recently did a session exchange with someone in an astrology class I'm with by Austin Kopic, and the feedback she gave me for the session was, you answered questions that I didn't know that I had. And Austin Kopic noted in the class teachings that this is something that often happens. And so as an astrologer, there is this responsibility to show up with care and thoughtfulness when you are offering your services and your consultations. And one thing, I just want to note, therapy speak conversation. A lot of therapy speak it's obviously become trendy, and sometimes that's helpful, sometimes that's harmful. Sometimes people use that to be manipulative. But I'm using these psychology therapy speak words of transference and countertransference because this is something that is one of those unspoken experiences. When you are working with people, this is something that comes up, that contemplation of, is this my own shit that I'm working through? Or is this something unique that's coming in within our relationship dynamic? Or maybe even with a generous assumption being oh, maybe this is where so-and-so is coming from. I also think that working with transference and countertransference helps you sharpen your intuition because you are working through pieces of unconscious bias, unresolved expectations, old patterns from within. And when you are in a service provider role, if there is that trust and that rapport built up, you can help your clients see those patterns within themselves. Or over time, as you work with many different people, you will see the patterns, the relational dynamics show up over time. This was a good session. Was there a good rapport between me and the client? Versus this was a more challenging session. What didn't connect between me and this person? And engaging in transference and countertransference, it doesn't make you a bad person, a bad astrologer, a bad consultant. It makes you human. Awareness of these dynamics helps you provide better, more trauma-informed, high-quality consultations, and it ensures that your clients feel like their session was worth the investment and that you feel good. You feel an integrity and that internal connection, congruence with your own practice and your work as an astrologer, which is really vulnerable in a lot of ways because you were sharing typically something that you are passionate about and you're helping people. And I also think as an astrologer, especially when I'm meeting with a brand new client, it's that healthy nervousness of, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about them. I'm really having to trust the stars, trust the astrology, trust the technique. And yeah, I think that's so powerful when we work through all of those internal biases that might be in the way so that we can show up and give a valuable reading or astrology session. Some people, they don't have a calling for astrology, but they can still do it. Why is that? It's because the techniques, the measurements, the interpretations, all that can be learned. Even some of it can be automated. There is a lot of good to that. For example, the Chani app is amazing. It takes your birth data and gives you really great interpretations based on your placements. But astrology itself is not automated. Human connection is not automated. And being with someone in a pivotal moment in their life is not something an algorithm can do. And so we need heart-centered, skillful, caring astrologers working with people to really help people see themselves, see their lives, and exercise their agency. And here's some pro tips. So for my astrologers who are familiar with horary or even electional, checking the chart of the moment of when a consultation begins is a really powerful technique to get to the heart of what y'all are doing together in this session. The consultation chart can reveal what is unconscious in a session. Let's talk about navigating transference and countertransference as an astrologer. So if you want to provide insightful, ethical, and nurturing consultations, here are some key ingredients. So one is objective analysis. I think that a lot of astrology is mathematical, and so trusting the math, trusting your delineations, trusting what you're seeing, I think that aids the more intuitive, the more spiritual sides of doing astrological analysis as well, because you're layering that on top of good technique and not over relying on one or the other. So skillful communications. So if you are taking an intake with clients, having a form that they can fill out where they can express what are the things that they want to know. What do they want to walk away with this session from? What are the questions that are on their heart and on their mind right now? Setting up your session for success through forms, through communication is really helpful. And even though all my clients fill out that form, sometimes there's a week or a couple weeks gap between booking the session and having the session. And so while I do reflect back pieces that they filled out on the form, I also like to start my sessions off with asking, how are they doing? What's present for them in this moment? How can I best be of service for them today? Communicating with the person in front of you, asking questions gets you so much more clear on what your people need and how you can provide that for them. Boundaries and professionalism would also really help. So holding space for someone, having empathy, having compassion without over identifying with their struggle. You have to strike this balance between empathy and imagining yourself walking in their shoes, and also not making it about you and not over identifying with their struggle. Ultimately, you are there to objectively, astrologically analyze their chart, or you're there to help them through a certain crossroads, or help them understand themselves or the timing of their life or their purpose. And so, having those professional boundaries. And a technique that I learned from IFS or internal family systems, if there is something that ever comes up for you that is sensitive based on what's coming up for your client. So for example, if your client experienced a certain type of hardship that they're opening up about, if a client is contemplating themes that remind you about the things that you're contemplating in your own life and having to make decisions over. Taking that time taking just a moment to tell those parts of you, like, hey, I'm going to check back on you after the session. Thank you for letting me know that you're feeling hurt. You're feeling like anxious. You feel like this needs attention in some way. Acknowledging that within yourself internally. And then coming back to it after your session can be a way to keep you calm or keep you practice regulation while you are still in a service role. And oftentimes people come to divination and they want answers desperately, and this might lead someone to book session after session and not really go anywhere. And that is a clear sign that they are looking for something deeper within divination. So when you're working with someone like that, really bringing them back to their power, bringing them back to their agency, and helping them integrate some of the insights that they've gotten and apply them into their real life. Perhaps there are clients who come in and they put you on a pedestal and expect you to be all-knowing. And the thing about when someone puts you on a pedestal is you are far more likely to have a fall from grace. And so really managing expectations there. And a big part about transference and countertransference is you cannot be fully responsible for someone's perception of you. And so there is only so much that you can do. And that is why a lot of this work comes back to unlearning your own bias, your patterning, all of these things, so that you can be really discerning when your own patterns come up, or when you're noticing something as a pattern in a specific client, or just in a way to show up and make it about them and not about you. And it's like taking time to actually make it about you and explore your inner world, your inner biases. It will also help you work through all that, or be in the practice of working through all that, so that when you're in session, you are not making it about you. There is that groundedness. And I always think practicing energy work, taking a few clearing deep breaths before a session, after a session, perhaps imagining a bubble of light clearing your energy field, an energetic waterfall, whatever resonates with you in your practice. I always like to connect to the earth and the cosmos and ask them to clear my energy field of all energy that is not mine and send that back to the earth and the cosmos to be recycled. And I trust that the earth and the cosmos are very smart and they know what to do with that energy, so I can just let go of that responsibility from there. And then I also ask the earth and the cosmos to restore my energy back to wholeness, clean and clear. So reclaiming any of my energy that might be dispersed out in the dimensions, in the world, and reclaiming that clean and clear. And that is like one energetic practice I like to do. And imagining like an auric bubble protecting you can be really helpful. You don't fully take other people's stuff on as your own, while still maintaining compassion, empathy, and care as you are there in a support role. And a big thing in trauma-informed care is when you've hit the edges of your scope of practice, when you've hit the limits of what you can offer a client within your proper training, within your ethics, within what you can actually do to help someone, referring out or providing alternate solutions. While I think astrology can be so powerful to help someone with their mental health, it is not the same thing as going to see a therapist. I think you can see a therapist and see an astrologer at the same time, and that can supplement each other really well. But if someone needs mental health care and you are an astrologer and you are not their therapist, that is something that is really important to practice and respect, so that you are allowing your people to get the best care that they can and find the solutions that they deserve, and also so you can protect yourself legally and stay within your scope of practice and be in integrity with your work and showing up and showing out and being an amazing magical astrologer or reader or whatever you might do. Yeah, so this is a little bit about transference and countertransference in astrology sessions. If there are any pieces that you want me to expand on, please let me know in the comments. Let me look through my notes to see if there's anything else I want to speak to. A lot of these things, it's just transference and countertransference. Well, that's like the therapy speak for the academic psychological terms for this phenomenon. This is something that happens relationally in professional settings, in client service provider settings, in personal life, professional life, all of these different areas of life. And this is just such a useful and powerful tool because it helps name a very human experience, and awareness can shift so much. And then on top of that, I've hopefully provided some insights, and I've provided some insights in this video to help you navigate that. So if y'all have any more questions, put them in the comments, and I will be back with more videos on astrology, energetics, human design, meditation, and if you want to continue to deepen this type of work, this is the work I do. I love helping people walk their purpose, step into their purpose, really hone in relational skills. And while there are things I love about AI, there are things about human to human connection, nervous system to nervous system connection that are so unique in what they can accomplish. And no cookbook astrology answer can replace the magic of a divinely timed astrology consult. And I'm enrolling my 6-week one-on-one program called Walk Your Walk. And so it's 6 weeks long. It is not just one consult. It is 6 weeks of deep, transformative work using astrology, meditation, energetics, human design to fully step into who you're meant to be. And if this resonates with you, I would love to support you. The details are on the sale page, and that will be in the show notes below. But I'm here to help you walk your walk, and that is what I do. And I've gotten feedback that like I am the real deal. So yeah, If you want to work with me, check out Walk Your Walk in the link in bio. I also have a link to check out my astrology consults as well. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Like, subscribe, and I will see y'all very soon. Have a yummy day. Bye.